board chairman of UBA, Kweku Awotwi, meanwhile says the domestic debt exchange program will not lead to a collapse of banks in Ghana.
I mentioned earlier, our exposure to some of these instruments is relatively small compared to some of the major banks. It certainly didn't make us bankrupt. It reduced our profitability. There are certain measures that a bank thinks about. Profitability is one, liquidity is very important, and solvency is another. There's a term that you may be familiar with called capital adequacy ratio. These things, how much capital you keep to make sure that your customers are taken care of. We're still above those statutory limits. So relatively speaking, UBA actually came off quite well with the debt exchange program, relatively speaking, because our exposure was actually, as I said, quite small. The fact of the matter is a lot of other banks were affected. The industry as a whole has been hugely affected. And I think what we worry about is more about, does that create contagion? But so far, I would say that I think the government is very well aware, and the Bank of Ghana is very well aware of this. So there's effort being made to manage this.
Concerns again have been raised about the adverse impact of the debt exchange on the banking sector, with some predicting that an impending banking crisis, could occur. So does this situation look dire, or is just something that we're saying?
I think it's one of concern, but I also know that the government is, they talked of a fund to stabilize the banking sector or those banks that may have difficulties. So I'm not sure that, the industry will collapse. I don't see that happening.
It is inevitable, again, the banks will suffer losses quick when, some are expected to face, solvency problems. So what is the situation like?
I can't speak for all banks. I certainly can't. I'm not in a position to do that. But we do know that some banks will be very hard hit. We know this for a fact. Will they go under? I can't say. But I do know that UBA will not be one of them.